Hey, good morning. Thanks for joining me on the Meg Ellefson Show. I appreciate you tuning in as always. Very happy to have joining me. And this is kind of some breaking news. A lawsuit was just filed. Oh, I should say a federal civil rights complaint was just filed by our friends from Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty. Cara Tolliver, who is one of their attorneys with this great organization, is joining me to describe what's going on. Good morning, Cara. How are you?
Morning, Meg. I'm great. Thanks for having me on.
Well, this is kind of exciting because I got this information and was told to keep it under embargo until 10 a.m. today. So here we are at 10:08. So what gives, Cara?
Well, recently as you mentioned, we filed a federal civil rights complaint against the Ohio-based Cleveland Clinic on behalf of our client, Do No Harm, which is a national membership organization dedicated to keeping discrimination and identity politics out of healthcare. So this complaint focuses on two racially discriminatory programs at Cleveland Clinic, the Minority Stroke Program and the Minority Men's Health Center. And both of these programs are top-notch programs. They tout numerous benefits and assistance for addressing conditions like stroke, diabetes, men's health conditions, various mental health issues, and other medical conditions as well. Unfortunately, though, these special programs are specifically limited to certain racial minorities and segregated on the basis of race in violation of the anti-discrimination laws under Title VI and the Affordable Care Act as well.
You know, I'm sitting here with my mouth hanging open because I'm thinking, how is it that they think they're going to get away with this? And honestly, that someone isn't going to point out, I mean, and frankly, beyond getting away with it, I mean, that they don't realize inherently how wrong it is.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Unfortunately, healthcare has not been spared from the harmful effects of DEI and racial identity politics, which results in discrimination. Perhaps some good news here. We do believe that the Cleveland Clinic is taking seriously our challenge against its racially discriminatory programs. Because following our complaint, the clinic began quietly removing all traces of at least the Minority Men's Health Center from its website. So for the time being, Will's complaint, which was filed with the Department of Health and Human Services, will remain pending unless Cleveland Clinic also addresses its minority stroke program and further confirms that both of the challenge programs comply with federal anti-discrimination law.
All right, so I have kind of a bone to pick because you just talked about their stroke program, and my dear, sweet, now departed dad had a stroke a number of years ago, and I can't even imagine him being denied treatment on the basis that he had the wrong skin color. And I honestly cannot believe that I mean, do you have any idea how long this program's been going on before it was brought to Will's attention?
I do. So with the stroke program, I don't think it's the case that the Cleveland Clinic would deny a person that's having stroke treatment. What they're doing is they're offering separate tracks of programming for patients based on color. So, if you will, minorities, and specifically they call out African Americans and Latinos, will kind of go in this special stroke program for them, and then everybody else kind of, to the other tract. And so, who knows if the services are a little bit different, but what they're doing is sort of segregating the services and kind of just, it seems to be that their rationale is, well, we offer treatment, that's generally equal. We just separate it. And as we should well know by now, this whole separate but equal treatment has been a long abandoned notion dating back to the early 1950s when the Supreme Court first struck that down in the education context, and then repeatedly after that. So with respect to the other program, the Minority Men's Health Center, this is a program that just treats various different conditions. As I mentioned, mental health conditions, which, by the way, plague 1 in 5 Americans in this country. Mental health issues are very prevalent. And then some of the other conditions, it kind of overlaps with stroke and diabetes and some other top killing conditions across the country. But this program has been around since 2003, according to Cleveland Clinic, and they don't even offer like a comparable sort of corollary for non-minority. So if I had to speculate, I would guess that the reason they moved to take that program down off their website so quickly is because of the fact that there was no comparable corollary for everyone else. But just the same here, this is racial discrimination at bottom. This is either a denial and or segregation of treatment based on race.
And we would have gotten away with it if it hadn't been for you meddling kids. I mean, that's sort of my response. But and it it's somewhat sarcastic, but it's still, this is what's happening in our country today. And we were chatting off air about this, but going back to this Minority Men's Health Center. Okay, so the way that something is inherently racist is by just replacing minority with, hey, what if the Cleveland Clinic had a white men's health center? Imagine the outcry.
Mm-hmm. And that's a really great point, because there are numerous conditions where for example, the black-white disparity, the disparity is on the other side. So, for example, Parkinson's, macular degeneration, type 1 diabetes, skin cancer, cystic fibrosis, osteoporosis, I could go on. These are all conditions that disproportionately affect white people. Would we open a clinic for white people to treat cystic fibrosis or osteoporosis? Of course not. We're just going to open health care to those folks who need care and who have risk factors for these types of diseases. That's the way that healthcare should operate.
Yeah, but it's astounding to me that in 2024 we need to, these are seemingly intelligent, educated people, right? That we're talking about at Cleveland Clinic that are making these decisions. And, I guess the question begs to be asked or answered, Cara, is how many other how many other clinics throughout our country are engaging in these same practices in which we're not even aware?
Unfortunately, there are a number of other health systems that have implemented programs like Cleveland Clinics that are similarly discriminatory and either segregate or exclude patients based on race. So you're right about that, and I think the problem at bottom with all of this is that these race-based equity initiatives in healthcare, as in other contexts, they are endeavoring to treat disparities. They aren't looking at individuals. They're not looking at individual patients. They are assuming that the race says all the doctor needs to know about who needs medical care the most, and sort of just discounting all of the legitimate factors and variables for outcomes, and just adhering to that blind deference to skin pigmentation. So we sort of just need to get back to basics here and just treat individuals as individuals. And, fortunately, we're in a situation where it's just become all too second nature to analyze every issue in terms of race. But believe it or not, there are causes for the appearance of racial disparities, and we shouldn't be overlooking those causes. We should just be offering help and treatment to those individuals who need it, and that's what we're going to continue to fight here at Will.
So, do you get the impression from their initial response? Have they verbally or in writing responded to your complaint? Has anyone reached out to Will from Cleveland Clinic?
Nope, they have not reached out. The response was to quietly remove at least one of the challenged programs. So At
Wow.
this
How
at this
brave.
point, right? At this point, we will just proceed with the complaint having been filed, and it will go through that course of investigation with the agency, and we'll take it through that process and proceed accordingly.
So, I mean, just to play devil's advocate for a second, Cara, do you, I mean, do you have any inkling as to why they could that they would justify something like this to begin with? I mean, are they trying to suggest that minorities have more chronic health conditions than I guess non-minorities?
Their program, the purpose of the entire framework, this is in healthcare as in other contexts. It's set up to treat a disparity. So they are responding to a perceived problem that just when you look at race, more in this case, Black Americans and Hispanic Americans are 2.5 more times likely as a group to suffer a stroke. So that sort of view of a problem looks only at race. It doesn't look at if you go to an individual Black person, that does not mean that person is 2.5 times more likely to suffer a stroke, right? All kinds of factors and variables go into an individual's risk calculation for disease. But they are just responding to a group statistic, and this is their justification for focusing on certain minority groups in these special programs. Doesn't treat individuals as individuals. It looks at this issue in terms of a group problem.
And I guess here's a bigger problem too that I foresee we will eventually have to face as Americans is that our quality of healthcare, you could argue that it's already depreciated, but our quality of healthcare will suffer because of these DEI programs that are pushed not to encourage or enroll the most qualified or the best and the brightest, those who have a gift for healthcare, but they're going to incentivize non-whites to be in these roles within healthcare. And again, who will suffer as a result? We all will, whether regardless of your skin color, if the push is to have non-whites treating patients guess, as opposed to having someone who's the most qualified.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. This is a problem that outside of looking at patients and treating them differently based off of race, there's the other issue of making hiring decisions on the basis of race. And unfortunately, if you're going to prioritize a bunch of qualities that don't necessarily or don't have any impact on the person's ability to deliver quality care, I mean, you're going to end up with results that don't prioritize that. And I think, personally, it's hard to find a quality doctor. It's hard to find a lot of quality services as it is. We don't need any more factors going against that, especially not in healthcare.
Well, and I think many of us are rightfully so skeptical about what we're getting in healthcare because of the motivation that we perceive is based on profit and not on treating the patient.
Yeah, and programs like this only continue to undermine that trust. I mean, if you can't go to the doctor and be treated equally regardless of whatever your skin color is, it really begs the question for what else you can truly expect.
So, outside of a lawsuit and I guess public shaming, what's Cleveland Clinic's motivation for, besides quietly scrubbing things off of their website, which, they could still be continuing these practices without,
Mhm.
making any hoopla over them. What what would you, or what would Will's goal be, to, I guess to characterize this as a win, for, well, I don't know, I guess for everyone's benefit, for freedom to be able to receive the best care from, as an example, Cleveland Clinic, regardless of your skin color.
Right. So, with the type of complaint that we filed with the Office for Civil Rights and the Department of Health and Human Services, that complaint will trigger the agency to further evaluate and conduct an investigation into what the Cleveland Clinic is doing here. And so it would be great if they did find a violation of Title VI and the Affordable Care Act's anti-discrimination provisions. Recipients of federal funding, like the Cleveland Clinic here, are bound to these laws, and when findings of discrimination are made like that, they can have pretty serious penalties imposed on them. So it would be a huge. They would be required to come into compliance in order to continue receiving funding, and this in turn would presumably have an effect on other healthcare entities that are doing these programs or thinking about doing these programs.
So again, it all comes down to money as opposed to doing the right thing. Isn't that
Um,
something?
it is something. So so that's a possible outcome here, and in any event, a lawsuit is always on the table. So not something that won't be in consideration as things progress.
So when you file a civil rights complaint, you do so with the federal government. So we've got a
Hmm.
crack team of bureaucrats that are on the case. Is that how it works?
We do. We'll see what happens there. Sometimes the right thing does prevail. So we'll see what happens.
So can I ask, you don't have to give up specific information if you're not allowed to. Obviously, you're the attorney in this conversation. But how did this complaint come about? Did you have someone reach out to Will to bring it to your attention, and then you proceeded from there?
So yeah, so Do No Harm is our client in this case, which I mentioned. They're a national organization of members who are physicians, nurses, other healthcare professionals, medical students, patients, policymakers. They run a whole spectrum of different members, and this group filed this complaint because it became aware that Cleveland Clinic's race-based equity programs were discriminating against some of its members, as well as an entire class of individuals
Right.
not considered to be a racial minority under these special programs. So, I mean, these are everyday people in search of help for, very common conditions: stroke, other cardiovascular conditions, mental health conditions, and encountering these racial preferences in Cleveland Clinic's special programming, and being faced with the fact that the clinic doesn't view them or prioritize them or care for them equally in the same manner without regard to race. So that's sort of how this came about. With these are real patients on the other end of this treatment.
Wow. Well, I'm very grateful that you joined me this morning and you're on top of this, Cara. Thank you so much for joining me. For our listeners that are concerned about perhaps they have been made aware of an issue, I don't know, similar to this, or in which they need legal representation, how are they able to go about seeking Will's help?
Yeah, reach out to us. Anyway, really, you can go to our website, will-law.org. There is an online request option to contact a lawyer. We have a form you can fill out, or you can give us a call at our number, which is also on the website, or 414-727-7412. And we would be happy to chat with you about concerns and evaluate whether or not you might have an issue.
Will-law.org is a good place to start. Well, Cara Tolliver, thanks for joining me. I appreciate it. Keep up the great work. Keep being vigilant. We need attorneys like you. We need your whole team. And as I said to you, sort of in jest off air, it certainly is job security. All of what I honestly probably have 4 or 5 press releases from Will currently that I have yet to follow up on with various legal actions that are pending as a result of someone taking away our freedoms and liberties here in Wisconsin or here in this country. So, hey, thanks for joining me. Have a great day.
You bet. Happy to do it, Meg. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Cara.